Welcome to the Football Podcast. This is your host, Mr. NumberNine.
And this is The Fool.
Hello, Fool, and everybody else who listens to us. I hope you all had a nice and safe holiday period, and if you're back at work, you're not having too busy or a grindy time.
Yeah, exactly. I hope everybody did have a good holiday break. Were able to get away a little bit wherever they were, and as much as they could where they were. But yeah, I'm being back at work this week, so it's been the first week back has been a bit crazy. It's been good.
That's good.
I hope everybody else had the same thing.
Yeah. So we had like an explosive fixture list, and then some interesting results coming in the last week as well.
Yeah.
So the Premier League is heating up. It looked like it was super unpredictable before, and it's possibly even more unpredictable now.
Well, it's 11 points covering the top 10, which is starting to spread a little bit the last couple of weeks, match days.
Yeah.
But still, that's pretty tight for the top 10, really. I mean, there's a few games in hand floating around in there, which will stretch things out a bit more,
which will make a big difference, probably.
But it's still 6 points for the top 6, top 7. We'll say top 6 because West Ham's had 19 games and Everton's had 17. So, that's not a lot of drop points difference there, and that whole thing can change. Like, I think goal difference looks like it's going to be a big factor this year.
It's going to be a huge factor, which is why, even though technically United with the game in hand are in pole position and they were top of the table after the Christmas fixtures, I'm not too optimistic about them because they have a terrible defense and they don't score many goals. So all their victories so far have been very close.
They are managing a plus 10 goal differential, so it's not horrendous.
Not too bad, but it's the lowest in the top 5. And Everton have a game in hand and they're only 3 goals behind. That being said, the fixtures coming up get to be a bit more lenient now for Manchester United. They've just faced Liverpool. Next up, they've got Fulham to play, and they've got Sheffield United as well.
Yeah, so that's...
so two bottom table teams, and then they've got a match against Arsenal. Look, Arsenal are not at their best this season. I think I'm not being unkind to Arsenal fans by saying that, but I think United are expecting to do well against Arsenal. End of the month fixture in January. So I think United have a pretty I won't say easy schedule, but there are points on offer there. They shouldn't afraid. They should be going for the kill and trying to kill off the rest of the competition. Leicester are another team that have basically had a tough part of their schedule go through, and they're a point ahead of United, and they've got a better goal difference, but United do have a game in hand. Looking at Leicester's fixtures coming up as well, they have
Everton first. Everton next.
Everton first, which is going to be a tough game, because I think, as we all mentioned, we think Everton are a pretty good side this season. And then they start going into the February fixtures. So United will have played 3 games and Leicester will have played 1. So I think it's better to have the points in hand than to have the games in hand.
Yes.
So if United can at least get 2 wins and a draw even against Arsenal, that'll put them in a very advantageous position against Leicester.
Yes.
But Liverpool and Manchester United drawing in their last game has probably really helped Manchester City. This is the team to beat now. I think they're in the actual pole position. They've got 2 games in hand on Leicester and 1 game behind Manchester United, on 35 points versus 37 and 38.
And if you look at their fixture list, it is almost a dream fixture list for them.
Yep. They've had the rough part of their season coming. Now, playing West Brom and Sheffield United, like both City and United, are going to do that. But I will point out that these teams are now battling for
Yeah,
relegation.
yeah.
So you don't want to necessarily take it for granted that you're going to win. And they also have Burnley and the February before they face Liverpool. So their next three games are all
Yeah.
winnable games before they face like an old rival. And also, I don't think
Yeah,
City
exactly.
should be afraid of Liverpool at the moment. Like City have,
No.
I think, have shown a bit more tactical nous.
Yeah. Liverpool, well, City have won their last five. Well, Liverpool has only won one of their last five, drawn three and lost one. So yeah, Liverpool. We'll talk about teams in a bit of a slump later on, I'm sure. But Liverpool are another one that are having a bit of a mini
Yeah,
slump for the Christmas period.
yeah, and also the flip side of that is City are still in the Champions League and City are still in the Carabao
Yeah.
Cup, and that fixture list is going to get crowded for City as the season progresses.
Yeah.
United are already out of the Carabao Cup. Yes, they're in the Europa League, but they're gonna play Liverpool. If they don't win in the FA Cup this month, if they don't win that game, then that's also gonna be them out of the cups fully, and really only have the Premiership to focus on. Whether that
Yeah.
means they'll do enough to win is a completely different question, but that's that can play to their advantage. Liverpool
Yes.
have a game against Burnley next, which once again winnable, but Burnley, this is the time of the year they get tough. They start defending well, they start sneaking in points against top sides and beating their fellow relegation strugglers. And then they've got a game against Spurs, and Spurs are a good side this season. Mourinho is not afraid of
Yes.
Liverpool. He's at home, he's going to be playing hard. And before their fixture against City in the 7th of Feb, Liverpool have Brighton and they have West Ham. Neither of those, well, yes, Brighton are struggling for relegation. They're also this time of year tend to start picking up their game and start getting the points they need to avoid relegation. And West Ham are competing for a top six position at least. I think
Yeah.
I think they'd be fairly disappointed if they didn't make the Europa League this year.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Because I suspect City will win the Carabao Cup, and
Yeah.
I think the FA Cup is most likely going to go to one of the top four teams that have won.
Fairly consistently that over the last few years, so it seems
Yeah.
likely.
So now the question here is: will West Ham finish on top of Chelsea and be the second best London club this season?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I'm just going to count
Yes.
Arsenal out of the top, even the top three London clubs now. Come on, Arsenal. Like, they might even fall behind Crystal Palace.
That is a possibility, but I think Arsenal perhaps have turned their season. They seem to be turning their season around enough now
I hope
that
so.
I think they'll avoid that sort of disgrace. But yeah, Chelsea, I don't know. We've definitely gone through a bit of a slump.
Yeah.
And I say slump, I actually mean ran off the side of a cliff by about 50 meters before noticing there was a down.
Chelsea need to be extremely careful because they're not guaranteed not to be relegated, and finishing outside all the the European spots and not winning a cup is going to put a lot of financial pressure on Roman Abramovich. Roman Abramovich has been a great owner for Chelsea. He's put in the money. He's invested in the club. All that stuff. I'm not for a moment, speaking against him from an ownership capacity, but if he has another season where without European football, it could be tough for him.
Yeah, I would suspect if this form continues, Lampard will be out, and they'll find a way to get something.
Gus Hiddink out of retirement.
Yeah, and just do it again, Gus. You can do it. But yeah, the thing is, I look at it and say all the things we said pre-Christmas when we were looking at saying, well, Chelsea had a bit of a form slump, but they're starting to kick out of it, and they'll be fine, and they'll go through. I mean, the players are still there. They've still got world-class players. Everything's still there. There's no, and most Lampard is not a top coach as such yet. I think there's enough. I've seen enough to say that that's just a matter of time, and maybe that is time away from Chelsea and back again. I don't know. But I look at it and say, this is. I think the saying is, form comes and goes, class is forever. I still have faith that Chelsea has enough class in there to pull it back this season. I think. I mean, we're only 9 points. Is it? Yeah, 9 points behind. I mean, it is behind Leicester. I mean, we're on the 19 games as well, so that may stretch out with City and United playing, and Liverpool and Tottenham, everybody. But
yeah, and
as you say, we got to have points there, so it doesn't take a lot of turning around.
It's just that I think the teams above Chelsea, like Spurs, have a game like next of their two. The next 3 games they have include a game against Liverpool and a game against Chelsea. But the flip side of that is it's almost 4 weeks for these 3 games. So they'll be well rested in between games, and I think they're going to be a tough opponent to face. And if they get these out of the way, then Spurs can start bullying the weaker teams again.
I do look at Chelsea's fixture list, and it's not too bad. I mean, we've got Wolves in a week's time, then Burnley, then Spurs, then Sheffield United, Newcastle, Southampton. Before the end of February is United and Everton. Well, Everton's beginning of March, but
it's less the people they're facing, but I think Chelsea has a very crowded fixture list. That they're playing a lot of games before I think they play like a relatively fresh Spurs and a relatively fresh Manchester United.
It is mostly week on week. I suppose Spurs, that's 5 days since hosting Burnley. So that's the Burnley one is in the middle there. So it is Wolves on the 28th and Burnley on the 31st, with the FA Cup against Luton Town on the 25th. So that is a bit congested, but I think getting to Spurs is not so bad. Looking at that, I would say that the question there is Burnley and ensuring that we're able to get a result out of Burnley at home, but still have the gas for when we go to Tottenham. That's going to be a balancing act there. It is 5 days, so that's a reasonable amount of downtime between those two. Not perfect, not Spurs level, was 7 or so days, but it's just making sure we get those 2 results from Wolves and Burnley, really.
And Spurs almost have this really nice warm-up against Wycombe Wanderers before they play Chelsea, and they have a game against Brighton and Hove Albion a couple of days before they play Chelsea. I mean, you're right. It's not that uncrowded, but
more crowded.
It could be the schedule could have been kinder to Chelsea at this point of the season.
Yeah. Yes, I think we go back a little bit and look at it's been a fairly crowded, the Christmas, New Year's, and then coming through January into February has been crowded in not a good way, not with easy, they had Leicester and Man City within, a couple of weeks. I mean, it was Fulham in between, but yeah.
There is a potential that if United do beat Arsenal, and the week after they'll have momentum and they could potentially beat Southampton, who seem to have lost a bit of form.
A little bit. Yeah.
Since the Christmas fixtures. And they could also... And then they'll be facing Everton, who are also a team United could beat because it's at home. And if they're on momentum, they're on momentum. And then they've got West Brom and Newcastle. So, in theory, they could be facing a United team that's just won 7 in a row, which would be a very tough ask to play against.
I'm pretty sure I would take United's fixture list, really. That's a really nice one. But yeah, it is what it is almost. But I feel like it's not the best, but it's not the worst it could possibly be. So it's just a matter of we've got the games there. I think a bit of it is that the games are there and the players have a few chances to go out and actually get themselves sorted as well.
I think all of the the guys who are hopeful of competing for the title, like they have some very key fixtures before the after leading up to the first week of March. Like
Yes.
Liverpool have Tottenham at the end of this month, and then they have City on the 7th, and then they play Leicester like a week later. So that's
Well, that was yeah.
definitely going to be like their key part of the season, how many points they can scrape through in that era,
Yeah.
in that point. But they also have like a UEFA Cup. They've also got a UEFA Champions League fixture against um, Leipzig right after playing Leicester City, and then
Yeah.
they play like the Merseyside derby against Everton. So it doesn't really let up for them, but then it eases out to games against Sheffield United and Fulham, assuming these two teams have basically given up at that point, which they
But
might not have. They
they
might
might not have,
be
but
like they might be grinding out and be potential banana peels. Similarly, Spurs have the next month facing Chelsea, obviously facing Liverpool at the end of this month, and then, as we mentioned before, and they've got their Europa League fixture against Wolfsburg, which is going to be not easy game, and then they're facing West Ham and Wolfsburg again. So once again, this is like another key fixture list for them,
yeah.
where they kind of have to get February the next 6 weeks are going to be crucial in figuring out how this is where the gap is going to start opening, I
I think
think.
I agree as well. I think like before Christmas we looked at it and said this is not Christmas is traditionally is the bit where you start sorting out the teams into
Mm,
the contenders and pretenders, and
yeah,
it's done a little bit, but I think we said that it wasn't really going to
yeah.
be
When
too.
Manchester United ended up top of the table after the Christmas fixture
Yeah,
list, we're like, no, there's still pretenders around the
yeah.
top.
It hasn't really sorted itself out, but I think I agree with you this time that yeah, if we get once we get through February, so the
Yeah,
next 6 weeks through to the end of February, I
yeah.
think there will be definite. These are the contenders, and these are the people fighting for fourth, and these are the ones that are now
And
outside.
the only advantage I think United have leading up to those fixtures is they've got a tough back-to-back week. The 28th of Feb they play Chelsea, and then 7th March they play Manchester City.
Mm.
But everywhere else, their tough games are like gapped, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
they've
yeah,
got Fulham, Sheffield United, and then Arsenal, and they should be getting some momentum going into that game against Arsenal, and
yeah, yeah,
then Sheffield United, Everton, who are going to be tough, but they should have some momentum going into that game, and then
yeah,
West
yeah,
Brom, Newcastle, and then Chelsea. So, and by the time they face West Ham mid March, it might not be that crucial a fixture anymore, but we'll see. Whereas everybody else seems to have a very crowded, tough schedule of tough games, and a lot of that is because they have Europa games and they have Carabao Cup games, which United don't have to deal with. They do have a very tough fixture against Real Sociedad. They've gone to Basque Country before and lost over two legs against Atletico Bilbao a few years ago. I don't know. Is it such a bad thing for United to lose in the Europa League? It clears up their schedule. I don't, but I always think United should aim to win the Europa League because you're never guaranteed a top four spot
yeah, yeah.
in the Premiership. They shouldn't take Champions League football for granted.
And at the very least, it's another trophy you can add to the collection.
Yes, of course. And they're out of the Carabao Cup.
Yeah,
If they lose to Liverpool on the 25th in that FA Cup fixture, which I don't know how Liverpool are going to approach that fixture, then it might be even easier for them. United, I think, have the easiest run up, followed probably by Leicester, who
yeah,
I'm not underestimating their run up, but they've faced a lot of their good sides. They've got Everton next in the Premiership before they get Leeds and then Fulham and then West Ham. All teams that I think Leicester have shown the ability to beat, and they should beat them this
yeah,
season before they face Liverpool and then they go to Aston Villa and Arsenal. Like all these, sure, Wolves and Aston Villa are, derby games for Leicester. And Leeds have played well this season, as much as I hate to say it, but at the moment they only have a one game against a fellow top four team coming in till they get to April. So Leicester actually Leicester might have the better schedule than United. To be fair,
Actually, just looking at it as a total, Leicester's schedule's pretty good. I mean,
yeah.
their schedule's pretty good. Everything gets sort of nicely paced out, except for the last 3 weeks of the whole season, where they faced United, Chelsea, and Tottenham in the last 3 weeks. So, well, the
So
last
that
three
is
games.
their key fixtures, I guess.
Yeah.
And it could come down to that, like how Leicester do in those fixtures might decide the top four at that point.
Well, those could definitely all be the decide. You get that point, and those are the games Leicester needs to get something out of to keep their. Quite likely they'll be at the top. Could be at the top throughout all the way up to that, with the others breathing on the neck. And those are the games. Need to win this game. Need to win this game. Need to win this game. So they may have come to 3 big games at the end, all of which are going to be title deciding almost. You say who gets where and what. That's fairly exciting actually for the end of the season for Leicester.
Yeah. Like May is gonna be like an incredible month of football.
Always is.
Definitely. Just before the European Cup
yeah.
starts. Now, if we look at the reverse side of things in the relegation battle, Sheffield United are still bottom.
I think that's...
Yeah, and their fixture list just does not get any easier here. I can't see them. I feel, unfortunately, they're going to be back in the championship next season, but I can see them winning next season and coming straight back up again. I hope they don't get rid of their manager, even if they do get relegated. I feel like he can bring them back up.
Yeah, I think at this point you can just almost guarantee that they're relegated. They're 5 points from their 19 games. They're 6 points behind West Brom, who's next. They're 11 points from safety. If they save this somehow, that is the greatest of all great escapes. I think that's greater than any others. 11 points at this
I
point.
agree. If they were to not get relegated from this point, it would be the greatest escape.
Yeah. And the next 2 games for them are diabolical. Man United and Man City. So they go to Manchester twice in 4 days? 3 days?
Yeah.
That's not looking positive for them.
And I think, unfortunately for West Brom, they're not in a better position. They need their opponents above them to stumble. The direct opponents right ahead of them, Burnley and Fulham, have 2 games in hand, which is going to play a huge role. And they have a much better goal difference than West Brom.
I think I think we can just put R beside Sheffield United and West Brom. They're both going down. I think even the only thing Fulham's got going for them is the 2 games in hand.
And one of those games is against Burnley. So so basically this month Fulham face both Burnley and Brighton, who are right ahead of them, and West Bromwich Albion. So which is why I kind of like them to stay up, because I feel like they can get a majority of points on offer from those next 3 games, other than the United game, which I do think they're going to lose.
Yeah.
Okay, my apologies. They are playing Burnley in the FA Cup, not the Premiership, but they're playing Brighton, who are a point ahead, but have they're 2 games behind them, and they could leapfrog over Brighton by winning that game. And then they've got a game against West Brom. After that, they're playing City and then local rivals West Ham. But it's like none of the relegation teams have a good schedule. And I feel like there are points on offer, and a game against West Ham is a game that Fulham traditionally wins. Like West Ham seems to banana peel that game a lot. And as much as I hate to say it, they tend to give the banana peel treatment to Chelsea as well, it seems.
Does seem.
They might beat other teams, but those are the 2s that they seem to not lose to. Like they'll get bullied by Arsenal and Spurs, and maybe even Crystal Palace amongst their London brothers, but they don't get bullied by the guys who are local in their area, Chelsea and West Ham.
We did manage to beat Fulham, not prettily, and it did almost require Fulham to go down to 10 players, and then it wasn't a comprehensive sort of when it was near the end when
Yeah,
Mason Mount finally was able to give us the game, and
yeah.
then
I
Werner
mean,
missing a sitter to put it beyond doubt, and us having to deal with extra time headaches whilst Fulham tried to steal a draw, but luckily we managed to keep it. So
yeah. Well, the only reason I'm sticking to Fulham to survive is they've got the 2 games in hand, and I do think Burnley will survive.
you're
I
picking
think
Brighton
they've
to
got. I don't know. Brighton and Newcastle are both relegation fodder to me.
Newcastle. Has got. I feel like looking at it,
The
I feel like
Newcastle have a bunch of games where they could easily lose the
yeah.
plot, and
I'll
any club that has like ownership issues, I'm always a bit wary of
actually make a good point on
when it
that.
comes to relegation time. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that I think Newcastle will get relegated. I am worried for them as well. I'm
Mm,
like you guys need to be careful,
yeah, yeah. It's looking at it. The last game for Fulham and Newcastle of the season is against each other. So Newcastle goes to Fulham on the last day. So
Mm.
it is
And that
possible
could end up being a decider game.
that could be the third place or the third
Mm.
relegation spot right there. Um, but yeah, just
But
looking at
I
it,
think
it's
of the teams, Brighton are in the worst position, especially
yeah,
if they lose to Fulham in the fixture coming up in a couple
yes.
of
I
weeks.
think that Brighton needs to win that. The only thing I'd give them is that they do have the points on the board.
Yes.
I mean, that is it, they're 5 points out of relegation. I'm sure that you say they're 2 games ahead, but
Mm.
which is that's not those 5 points, but the points are in the bag. Um,
Yep. Yep.
I mean,
Exactly.
they only have to really worry about the ones below them, Newcastle. So if everybody's focus for those sort of Newcastle to the Fulham can
Mm.
be reasonably straight ahead. They know what they need to do. So I feel like with Brighton having the points, and as you say, this is a point in the year where they traditionally start to stiffen up and
Mm.
scrape together the right amount of points because they've been here, done that. They know the relegation
Yeah.
battle. They know
I think
where they can pick those points.
Brighton's
So
only upside is they have been here, done that before.
they do have the best. They do have the best goal differential as well. It's only
Yes.
-7. So that's half of Burnley's, or just under half of Burnley's. Not that far under half of Fulham's. You know,
Mm.
and same with Newcastle. So
It's really weird to me that Fulham is relegation fodder. Like they've actually got the richest owner in
yeah, yeah,
the Premiership with Shahid Khan. And he's the kind of guy who tries to buy Wembley Stadium.
yeah,
Like he's that level of rich. So there's no reason. Like, yes, he has to go with financial fair play and all this other stuff, and he's doing a lot of work to rebuild the infrastructure around Fulham to keep it sustainable and running well. But Fulham should not be a yo-yo club. Fulham should be like a comfortable. I'm not saying Fulham has to be competing for premierships because that game has changed now because of financial fair play. And he's the second richest owner because the oil sheikhs who own Manchester City are obviously the richest owners. uh,
maybe
but
richest single owner, maybe.
apart
But
from Manchester City, he can compete with everyone
yeah,
money wise.
easy, easy
And
peasy.
while Fulham doesn't generate the kind of income that a club like United do, they're still a club in London.
Yeah,
Like, and they could another 10K people for their stadiums would give them extra income. Yeah, sure. We are in times of COVID, and probably maybe even this coming year will be in times of COVID, maybe even all the way up to the end of next season.
yeah.
But I mean, obviously, touch wood, no. But I'm just saying that's what all the experts seem to think about vaccinations and
It's,
effectiveness. Blah blah blah.
it's
People who are more knowledgeable about these things than I am
yeah, exactly. I mean,
seem to think that it's middle of next year before we get open travel and
well, it's,
going back to what our new normal will be.
yeah. Well, you got to have enough time to actually get. Even if we get the vaccines, you got to get through the vaccination program.
Yep.
So that just takes time. In terms of sport, it may be another season again.
Yes. and touch wood, we don't get another infectious strain or something
Yeah.
like that. This is like people seem to think optimistically mid next year.
Yeah.
But like, and I'm just going to assume they're correct
Yeah.
at this
Yes.
point.
Same.
Fulham's probably wasted the last 5 years. They should have been an established Premiership club by this point. They shouldn't be relegation fodder. They should have enough good players. They should have enough people coming up through their academy to support them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they live in the part of London where you get all the players. Like that's where the marshes are. That's where people go to practice. And
Well, they're just down the
things
road from
like that.
Chelsea. I mean, yeah. So.
Yeah, they're just down the road from Chelsea. They have a very loyal fan
Yeah.
base and everything. Like they just need to have a really and look. Nobody's going to compete with Chelsea's academy system. It is the best in the world.
Yeah.
That is, and but they can be just as good as a club like Arsenal or Spurs are.
Yeah.
For that matter, or West Ham for that matter, all the London clubs have a great youth system.
Yeah, and in going back to the stadium, our mutual orange-haired Holland-loving friend from living in London, it was a while back, but he did say that Craven Cottage was by far the best stadium in London to go to, and football stadium in London to go to. For regular Saturday, Sunday football, he far preferred going to Fulham and to watch there. He said it was really nice. It's so smooth to get in and out of. Everything, it had the best views and everything. So
He told me the same thing as well,
yeah,
but a lot of people who also live in London have been telling me in the last few years Crystal Palace has been taking the cult.
yeah,
Like this is the spot where if you're an outsider in London, which a lot of Londoners are, and you don't support one of the London clubs, you have a season ticket pass to Sellers Park at Crystal Palace
yeah.
because the atmosphere is great.
Oh,
The
definitely.
fans are like loud, they're festive, and unless it's a Brighton game, there's not really that much trouble.
Yeah,
It's in South London, which is a pain for a lot of people to get
yeah,
to.
yeah. It's a reasonably way in South London as well, isn't it? If I remember correctly. From
Yes.
so yeah, that would be a bit of a pain to get to for most.
But a lot of people do, and a lot of people like being Crystal Palace fans. Not
It,
like at least a casual Crystal
yeah,
Palace fan. So and Crystal Palace's owners are nowhere near as rich as Fulham's. Like they've just got a good setup.
if Fulham had, part of that would be that Crystal Palace has been in the Premier League for the last 5 or 6 seasons
Yes.
fairly consistently. Fulham has not.
Yes.
If Fulham had been,
Exactly.
I would suspect that they would have kept that sort of you say that cult following because Fulham is easy. Craven Cottage is easier to get to than Sellers
Yeah.
Park. It's the games, as I understand it, are just as nice, and it's viewing and experience is pretty good, and the fans have always, you say, it's loyal following, so they're really good as well. So I think that just shows the difference of staying in the Premier League versus dropping out, is that you collect those fans. Therefore you can keep those gate tickets and merchandise sale and all the rest, and it just shows the big drop going down to the Championship.
Absolutely, and they have to get this window because there are few clubs in the Championship in London that could sort of establish themselves as regulars. There's Brentford, there's QPR,
Yeah.
who Brentford doesn't have a rich owner, but QPR do.
Yeah.
And they're both in East London. Like that is that is a crowded area which could easily get to get even more crowded. So they need to kind of get up there. Like there's certain clubs that are always going to be in the Championship or always be a yo-yo club. Like if Millwall get promoted to the Premiership, I don't think they're staying up there.
No.
And I don't think a club like the fans of Millwall want to be in the Premiership full time. Like they like the Championship.
Yeah. It would.
And they like being like established and being in the Championship. But Brentford are ambitious. QPR should be ambitious if they're not. And so Fulham need to be equally ambitious, or it's a crowded marketplace in London.
Yeah, well, definitely. That is the thing, is that there are lots of clubs there, as you say.
Yeah.
Lots of Premier League clubs, plenty of lower league clubs as well. If people want to pick that up. So yeah, if you're whilst you're in a large market, it is a crowded market.
But we'll see. Like,
Yeah.
it's just one of the problem with American owners. Even though he's Pakistani American, Pakistan's not a football country either.
No, no, not
Like,
really.
unfortunately for Fulham fans, and with I think Shahid Khan, if he eventually does get his NFL franchise in London, he may not even care about Fulham anymore.
Yeah, there is
Um,
that.
I think it's a waste because Fulham could even be like a regular Europa team, and
Yeah.
being a team that regularly competes in the Europa League, that's going to be a thing. That's going to be a decent source of income for because I don't think any team can guarantee a top four position in the Premiership anymore coming into the next decade, other than Manchester City, who just have all the money.
Yeah, yeah.
Even Liverpool, even United, and heck, United have shown this decade, the
Yeah.
past decade, that they're not guaranteed a spot.
I think
Um,
even City, even with all the money, they can't get
yeah,
all the talent. With FPA, they can't get all the talent. So
they can't get all the talent,
they
but they do have a very good academy
they do have
system.
to. I mean, I would be surprised if they even didn't make the top four.
I mean,
But at the
every
same,
team can have a bad season. I'm
yeah,
not saying, but we should always be expecting City to be top four
yeah, yeah.
and be in the Champions League spot.
Yes, okay,
Other
yeah.
than everybody else, we're like, oh yeah, I'm not surprised that they're not. If you told me 2023 City didn't qualify for the Champions League, we'd be like shocked.
Yeah.
It's not impossible, but we're shocked. Whereas like other teams would be like, yeah, okay, that's feasible. Like
Yeah.
we've all had yo-yo seasons in recent memory,
Yeah, fair call,
and it's
fair
very
call.
competitive.
Yeah, yeah.
And at some point, there's the diminishing returns on what you can do with the best players. There's a lot of really good players, and you can only have 11 players on the pitch.
Oh, exactly. And that's
And
as the beginning of
yeah,
the season showed. Even City's not immune to injury woes as either. So,
yes, yes,
um,
absolutely.
whilst they've managed to pull that all back, you know, very well. But
Yeah, but also they've been lucky this season that everybody else ahead of them
yeah,
have all dropped form at some point in this season.
well, I think it's lucky for them that the season they had the big injury woes and had a poor start. It wasn't so much everybody else had poor form, though that was also true, but everybody else was beating each other as well. Like there was no,
Yep.
there wasn't. It's been a 7, 8, 9, 10 headed race just about the whole
Mm.
way through. Really, 7 through 10 perhaps have always been a bit out of the thing, but since Chelsea was up first or second before Christmas, and now we're eighth. You know, it's
Yep.
not a Everton was leading for a reasonable amount of time at the beginning of the season.
Oh,
They're
yeah, and
sixth.
they look very good,
Yep.
very comfortably good.
Southampton was
Um,
looking strong. They looked fairly comfortable in the top four, and now they're down to ninth. So yeah, it's
Look, Everton's time might come back. They
yeah.
have 2 games in hand over Leicester. And if they win both those games, and they are on equal points with Leicester, so they're not out of it by
Oh,
any stretch of the imagination.
I,
And we don't, like we said, a manager who's won the Premiership before, who knew he knows how to coach in the Premiership? Like,
yeah, who would have known? But yeah, no. I mean, I look at it. Even though Arsenal say is 11 points off and without games in hand, actually maybe Aston Villa's but that's different reasons why they've lost so many games. But like that's only 11 points that has been hauled back in previous seasons from this point in the season.
oh yeah.
It's I mean
Well,
it's not usual, but
famously, Manchester United overhauled a 14-point lead against Newcastle in the
exactly,
96-97 season.
exactly. I mean it's I look at that and say the top 10 are theoretically in this. I mean even top 11 because say Aston Villa's got what 4 games in hand, but that's the COVID. So we may have to just ignore that because there's no guarantees they'll win all those games. And
Yeah,
that's
and I think the other part we have to say, the elephant in the room, COVID
yeah.
is going to play a role. Like, there's going
Oh
to be players missing due to catching COVID and having to go into like quarantine, etc.,
yeah, yeah.
etc. And touch wood, that's as far as it goes with
Well,
players, and like staff,
yeah,
and
yeah.
heck, we may. I hope it doesn't happen. We may even get to the point where clubs have to forfeit games just because of COVID, and they can't
Well,
just put a
that's
team out.
yeah. Well, that's where Aston Villa's almost at. I mean, at the moment they possibly it's still enough time to replay the 4 games they've got. But at some point, that's a lot of games. They're only officially done
If
15 games, so
especially if they lose Jack Grealish to United or another club,
yeah.
they'd be foolish to sell Jack Grealish in this window. I 100% don't think they will.
No, that's yeah. Given how things are gone, that's just not. But yeah,
And
they've just got to pack a lot of games in, and I think they've had COVID-19 among the ranks, so that's what's pushed off some of those games. That whether that's contained or not, I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, they look like the team that's most affected at the moment, which could be sad.
yeah. Now,
see.
at this point, I think it's time for us to have way too early predictions for the end of the season, because we're pretty much at the halfway point. Teams are leading up to getting to their 19th game.
Yeah.
All right. Who do you think? Who will finish top 4?
I'm going to put it on the line and predict Leicester City to win it this year. Just going to say it.
I agree. Leicester City wins it. I also concur with that.
I think City will be second.
Yep. Agree.
I think you guys will be third. I think you'll manage to hold on.
I think so too.
And I'm going to be very overly optimistic and think Chelsea gets back to fourth.
This is where I will differ from you, and yes. I think Liverpool, just because they've been getting injuries and they have key injuries in key areas, Virgil van Dijk's not coming back anytime soon. And I think they've just shown their goals have dried up. Like, they've just lost form in the offensive third this season. I can't explain it, but it's there. Everybody who watches them play can see it. We don't know why. Like I said, I can't explain why it's there, but it's there. So I think Spurs are going to sneak ahead of them. Mourinho will get Spurs to fourth. But I would not be surprised if Liverpool won the Champions League and still went to the Champions League next season.
Yeah.
This is the season to do it, because Madrid and Barca are in terrible form. Yes, sure, Bayern is the team to beat for everybody, but we haven't had a back-to-back Champions League winner in ages that isn't named Real Madrid.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be fair, Bayern's, it's the same every year. They always look ridiculously strong in the Champions League, so...
Yeah, Barca's not unstoppable. Real Madrid's not unstoppable.
Definitely not PSG.
PSG are not unstoppable.
Yeah, exactly. They're, especially this year, they're looking... all of them. I mean, PSG may be less so than the other two this year. But at the same time, PSG have never managed, for whatever reasons, to be able to put together the whole season for the Champions League anyway, so...
Yeah. If it's not Bayern, any other team can win. That's what I'm saying. I just still think Bayern are favorites for Champions League.
Definitely.
So if Chelsea sneak in to fourth, in your opinion, who gets fifth? Spurs or Liverpool?
I think I might go with you that Spurs hold fifth and Liverpool drop further. You're right. I think we said, they have a very light squad. Injuries would ruin them, and they start to pick up those key injuries, and they don't have the cover for it.
I actually think that Everton will finish fifth. I think Liverpool might finish as low as sixth this season, just because how bad the injuries have ravaged that squad.
Yeah.
They're not bad players, they're not a bad team, and Klopp is by no means a bad coach, but, you get these seasons where you just don't have the bodies, and if COVID affects Liverpool, things are going to be bad for them.
Yeah, I think you may be right. If Liverpool keep getting any more injuries, Everton look stronger, look deeper, and they're currently in very good form. As you say, they've got 2 games in hand, which is the 2 games between them and Leicester at the moment.
Yeah.
So, and they've been winning. They've won 4 of their last 5. So it's not like they're out of form. Whilst you say Liverpool been struggling to win.
Yeah.
I mean, Everton did drop it. The game they did drop was against West Ham, but such is life sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're looking strong. I mean, West Ham's in 7th, and they're looking strong as well. They've won 3 out of the last 5 with 2 draws. They haven't lost in 5 games, possibly more. So yeah, so they're they're also looking good. But I think I might agree with you that it's quite possible that Everton finishes above Liverpool.
Yeah, because I could see Liverpool's defense getting weaker and weaker as
Yeah.
the season progresses. I don't think their offense will stall like they have all through the season.
Yeah.
But I don't know when they're gonna get out of it because I don't know what's causing it. Like it's one of those things.
Yeah. I know what you mean. It's hard to know, but especially the last little bit, they're just not looking very good at all. Go back,
Yeah,
just before
but
Christmas
I
to their
don't think
7-0.
they're gonna fall below sixth. I think they will get at least sixth. If like that's my predicted position, sixth place for Liverpool, and I will say Chelsea gets the 7th place and gets the Europa spot over West Ham.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think maybe my prediction: Liverpool's dropping the 7th with Everton at 6th. Though I think that might go either way around, and then you have West Ham underneath that.
Okay. Now, other side of the table, relegation. I think we've both agreed. Sorry, West Brom and Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Yes, out of it.
They're out of it.
I predicted Fulham to get out. I don't like saying it, but I guess because I picked Fulham to get promoted, and I never bet against Sean Dyche. I think Brighton are the team, like back-to-back seasons of South Coast teams getting relegated.
Yeah, I mean, possible. I look at it and just think Fulham, they don't have the points. It's. I mean, they have been picking up draws, but I think the current bottom three are just going to stay there. I don't see any of them being able to pick it up. I think the ones just above them, Burnley, Brighton, Newcastle, even Wolves, who should be far enough out and good enough team to be kept out of that battle. They've got the experience over Fulham for this.
Yep.
And I think they've got better teams as well in terms of personnel. So I don't see Fulham being able to pull it back. I mean, I know they've got the 2 games in hand over Brighton and Newcastle, or 1 game over Newcastle, but I just don't really see it. That to me, that just means they have to play more games in a shorter amount of time.
Yeah.
Which, when you're doing a relegation battle, that's less than ideal. You really need having those rest periods and get everybody back. You want your team, you want everything solid, and you want the rest preparation each time to be nice and steady and get through and be able to grind out results, keeping the flow, and having to pop in mid-game weeks and all the rest just sort of really in short turnarounds can disrupt that. I think it's a positive for Fulham that's potentially putting them on 18 points, which puts them above Brighton. In terms of the relegation battle, I think it's going to be more of a negative than a positive for them.
I don't know. I see where you're coming from. Like, obviously, I've made my pick, so I can't change things now.
So we're both going to have the bottom and the top have our one team difference, basically.
But yeah, I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much for listening to us. We hope it was entertaining. Once again, Happy New Year and good luck with the rest of your year. See ya. Bye.
Catch you next time.
Жилеты, все парни одеты стильно. В квартире нету места и так много красивых. Эй, девчонки, ну что вы там в сторонке? Завидные ребята, ночка будет долгой. Ну что за стиль? Ну что за стиль или наука? Не качает музло, если нам не нравишься, подруга. У нас на паузу никак не тянется рука. Заработал 30к.